Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AI4 event. Our next panel is titled the State of AI in Investment Management. Please join me in welcoming our panelists to the virtual stage as they turn on their cameras and mics and join us for an awesome conversation. I'll hand it over to our moderator.
Thank you, Patricia. Welcome everybody to the AI for Investment Management panel. We have some esteemed panelists today. Let's start with a quick introduction of each of us, and then we can jump right into the discussion. So let's start with John.
Hi, my name is John Finneran. I lead marketing for financial services at Sinequa, which is an intelligent enterprise search platform. I have worked in financial services groups at Apple and Samsung, and I've been the treasurer of a derivatives trading firm. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Alexander?
I'm a senior AI engineer at Graphcore. Graphcore is a semiconductor company. We have built a chip for machine learning. It's much faster for many machine learning problems in financial modeling, but not only, compared to other processors. Before that, I've been in machine learning for 20 years, and at Graphcore, I'm enabling wins with our customers and their success.
Thank you. Ioana?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ioana Boier. I am the head of Quantitative Portfolio Solutions at Alphadyne Asset Management. I have a dual background in computer science and finance. And prior to joining finance, I actually worked for many years at IBM Research, doing research related to AI, computer graphics, computer vision, and predictive analytics. I have to bring up a disclaimer. Everything I say here today, all my statements are my own personal and don't reflect those of my employers. Thank you.
Thank you. Victor?
Yes, hi, my name is Victor Martinez. I work as a lead data scientist at State Street Bank Corporation. I've been working in AI over the last 3-4 years. Prior to that, I was a quantitative analyst, more like in the role of a quant, doing option pricing analysis in terms of theoretical finance. And prior to that, I have a PhD in theoretical physics. So has been all my career developing models in terms of analytics. And the effort into AI is being able to combine different techniques related to dynamics and also to option pricing theory into new pattern recognition in AI.
Thank you, Victor. My name is Deba Sahoo. I'm Senior Vice President and Head of Product for Customer Journeys at Fidelity Investments, based in Boston. I have had different roles in my prior life. I have had roles in engineering, in product, in strategy, and data science. And I currently lead a product team at Fidelity focused on our customer journeys. I have a bachelor in engineering from NIT India and a master in business administration from Chicago both. So with this quick introduction, let's jump into the panel. Patricia, if you can put the questions and we can start with the first question. Thank you. Let's start with our first question. In this time of COVID, have AI initiatives become higher or lower priority? Let's start with Alexander.
Thank you. So I would say it varies based on the company. For example, certain companies are building new strategies that employ textual data or images, trying to extract signal from alternative data. And machine learning outperforms other methods in these tasks. So AI became a high priority for these companies. On the other hand, purely quantitative models can be hard to explain through fundamental reasoning. and it's hard to predict why a model may stop working. So there are companies that, based on their culture, hesitate to take additional risks of putting such models to production. But overall, as a trend, research projects in machine learning are ongoing in most companies and are becoming a higher priority. That's what we're seeing.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, I think higher, subject to challenges of adoption. So we've done most of our work with active investment managers. So around investment strategy, looking at unstructured data and so on, and trying to look for alpha there, because as everybody knows on the call, the public sources are completely well mined, and that whole industry has active investment management, has stresses. So hence there's M&A going on, fees falling, losing assets to passive. So those trends have kind of been gone from acute or gone from chronic to acute with COVID. So you're seeing those things speed up. So I think that's the major impact. But to Alex's point, it varies by particular client and their individual situation.
Yeah, thanks. Ioana?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a balance between firefighting short, medium, and long-term projects. And so depending on the size of the organization, the amount of resources and so on, some activities can be performed in parallel, and sometimes it's all hands on deck. So I think AI as a strategy is always a priority, and it's here to stay regardless of the immediate and the particular crisis that we're going through. But that said, depending on resources and other considerations, some of the implementation steps may be postponed or delayed.
Thanks. Victor, do you like to add some more perspective?
Yes, in the banking sector, when it comes down to operations, AI has certainly been kind of a priority because of the potential to automation and being able to streamline a lot of those processes that are needed right now because of the lack of personal interaction. And so from that aspect, I think techniques in AI have become a lot more important for the sheer kind of need of automation at this point. In terms of alpha generation, yes, still, I would think that hasn't really changed that much from the perspective of how they get implemented or how they get tested.
Yeah, I agree. I would say from my perspective, we have seen, I think from a product or operation perspective, COVID has definitely accelerated the trend towards digitization and automation. And based on that fact, I think AI is a very, very core part of that strategy. So longer term, definitely we are seeing much more focus around incorporating AI into the digitization and automation journey, whether in operational processes and client servicing and other things around it. So let's move on to a next question, Patricia. Why is not AI more effective at generating alpha? Why is it such a difficult problem? Great question. Let's start with Ioana.
Well, so I think there's different kinds of alpha, right? So there's some macroscopic alpha that, especially in discretionary, but also systematic funds up to this point have been able to uncover and find. But then there is the microscopic level alpha, which is, I think, after being through the macroscopic one and having picked the low-hanging fruit, people are now starting to search at the microscopic level. And that's where we need a lot more computation, a lot more sophisticated algorithms. And I feel also the search space is quite huge, and then the data challenges are big, right? So we need to just cleaning, getting raw data and the amounts that it comes in, and then cleaning it up, feature engineering on top of that, and then before you can even get to any strategies or any algorithms, it takes quite a bit of know-how and resources. So it's not an easy problem.
Thank you. Others want to chime in?
Yeah, let me make a statement about that. I think the biggest challenge, given all what was mentioned, I think the biggest challenge is the fact that financial markets are highly adaptive, and so from the generating alpha in general is a very challenging and difficult endeavor, but especially because of the non-stationary part of financial markets. Most of the techniques that you have seen in AI are very effective and has been very successful in dealing with the stationary problems. For example, images, language. Those are things that are relatively non-time varying. When it comes down to financial markets, are the case very highly adaptive. So a pattern that you may see may change quickly, and then you have to set up environments where you can pick that dynamics. And I think that's where the main challenge really is, in the non-stationary part of. And then if it was easy to make money, everybody would do it. And I don't think that's any different with AI. And picking those opportunities or looking for those opportunities where everybody hasn't been looking at is really where the challenge is. And that's where the difficulty is. But I mean, yeah, if you have $100 on the floor, trust me, it's not going to last too long, and whether there is AI or not in the picture, right? So that's the real big challenge of this business.
Yeah, Alexander?
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. So yes, the market is constantly changing. And also, if we go to the math level of the strategies, there is an important factor of noise that is present in the data. So machine learning models, the normal ones, neural networks, can suffer from noise. And as you go to the microscopic level, as Ioana had mentioned, noise is even more important as a factor to training those models. So we are seeing companies trying to adopt methods that are more stable towards noisy data, such as probabilistic models and Markov chain Monte Carlo, as an example. These models generate predictions as distributions, not just point estimates. So there is a notion of noise embedded in these models. And the models such as MCMC are great because they can at the same time account for noise, deal with nonlinearities in the data, and you can even stay on daily intervals without going to the microscopic level. Another aspect of the data is non-stationarity. So you want to retrain your model frequently, or relatively more frequently, because of that. And the processor that Graphcore has built has been shown to be up to 26 times faster for such problems. So an interesting aspect.
Yeah, no, thank you, Alexander. John, do you want to chime in? I think we might have lost John. So I would say, I think I agree with most of the points everybody mentioned here. I think in various AI models, it has also been a challenge to do this at scale when things are changing in general. So I think it's easy to actually build the first model or the first set of models, but how do you actually deploy? How do you actually kind of manage the changing environment, changing parameters, and really run this at scale? That's something that I think collectively a lot of folks are working towards. So that has been I would say, a challenge in this particular aspect. So Patricia, maybe we can jump to the next question.
So the next question is going to be, which investment strategies has AI enabled?
Anybody want to chime in first?
Yeah, let me give you a little bit of a perspective on that. I think that there has been techniques that have shown to make an impact. One is in terms of deep neural networks. Going back to this non-stationarity issue, I think recursive networks seem to be picking patterns in time that are not picked by traditional models. So in that case, there's been some edge in that aspect in the time series analysis when it comes down to AI. I think where the most clear kind of impact has been is in credit. There has been a lot of effort in terms of NLP, moving into or extracting new information about probabilities of default, or trying to get signals in terms of news or events that can be grabbed from metadata to be able to infer into changes in credit creditness or credit risk of different companies or entities in general. So I think that's probably where the most of the impact has been when it comes down to financial investment.
Yeah, thanks. Alexander, you want to chime in?
Yep, I agree with Victor. It's mostly alternative data, predicting stock movements from news articles and also analyzing images like satellite images with the same goal. And also I would say some short-term strategies, maybe high frequency trading, where you have abundance of training data. Those also benefit from AI already.
Ioana?
I just want to bring up the point that I was trying to make before as well, that I think the most impact up to date has been in systematic strategies, and in the discretionary space, there's still yet to be proven the true value and true impact, and I think we're just barely scratching the surface here.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of you. Patricia, maybe we can jump into the next question.
The next question is, what is the cost of implementing AI in investment solutions?
Anybody wants to jump in first?
So I can start. I think to start experimenting, the entry cost is actually pretty low, right? Because we have there is a good open source ecosystem that people can just start experimenting and playing with. There's also pre-trained models. I think that the challenge in finance in general is to take these generic methods and adapt them specifically to finance. I think there are, as it's been pointed out in some of the previous questions, I think there are specific finance-specific issues in areas related to either the amount of data available, the noise in the data, the language itself. Like for example, in NLP, pre-trained models that are put out by Google and other companies are not necessarily trained on financial speech, and so there's challenges to that end. But I think that the entry cost to experiment is low, but then it's the cost transfer to having the right people to do this kind of work and to perform the experiments. And then later on, obviously, as we try to scale, then there's costs associated with both the computational resources, the people, and the perhaps non-open source software that's needed, and enterprise level software.
Thanks. Victor, Alexander, John, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I would say first thing council is use a product. So we've been doing natural language processing since 2002, and that's often the case, the sort of base value case for financial institution. They have lots of documents, whether it's trading, research, legal, swap documentation, or whatever. There's a machine learning component it built in, so you're not kind of having to start from scratch. So I think there's a lot of frameworks around open source is a good way to start, but maybe not scale. So product is a pretty good way to do it. The UI is extremely important. If people don't have a familiar way of interfacing, tends not to get adopted.
In terms of, again, I think in finance it's important to create two different areas where AI is being used currently. One is in the operations part, and the other one is in the alpha generation of portfolio management area. I think in terms of the operation part, the barrier to entries are not just cost, but also how things have been done traditionally. There's a lot of reliance on manual work, and the difficulty is changing the habits of many of the practitioners in the industry. That was really the challenges. And with that, there's also cost involved in making those changes happen. So I think that's where I think the big barrier to entry is. In terms of the investment side, traditionally most of the firms who heavily invest on this are always open to new ideas in terms of new methodologies to generate alpha or to do optimization. So that has traditionally been very expensive, and the type of labor and the skills that are required for that, and also intensive in terms of computation. So I think that's still there. Where I see some opening, which is sort of a mixture of the two, and I think there's some techniques that are moving into optimization in terms of portfolio generation, for example, dealing with ETFs or different passive portfolio strategies, more like in the allocation part. I think that's, I would think the cost to entry might be a little bit an issue there. And I think, but that's also in its infancy. I mean, I think that, again, the tradition or the way of people dealing with investments and, for example, optimizing your portfolio given your profile of your risk profile is still a very manual thing. And I think that AI could have a major impact on that, because there's a lot of information that can be used. But it's a very expensive thing to come for regular investors to move into that space.
Yeah, Alexander?
I would say, yes, agree with the previous speakers. There is a barrier to entry that gets lower as we get these new frameworks and open source data sets and different tools. The main cost factor probably for AI would be the time of the researchers. And another aspect is that it's hard to hire highly experienced researchers. So it's not only not only expensive, it's sometimes impossible. So you need to be very efficient using their time, investing their time. So time to result with your research experiments is of critical importance. And also for inference, when you have a model that you can put in production, time to result is important because it's your competitive advantage now. So this is another area where Graphcore's IPUs processors can bring a unique competitive advantage to customers, enabling advanced models to run faster.
Yeah, so I would say, I think I agree with many things my panelists kind of shared. I would just provide a couple of other perspectives. One, I think in general, we agree that there is a learning curve from a not just people, but from an organizational perspective to actually learn how exactly the AI capabilities can be applied within your industry, within your ecosystem, within the specific domain and within your company. And not investing could be actually prohibited in the long run. And that if not going to invest now, you may be too far behind from a data perspective, from understanding talent and research, all the other perspective, that eventually maybe become very difficult to actually catch up. So that's one way to kind of think about like how to actually start experimenting and learning now, so that may inform exactly how do you scale from here. If you don't do that, that will be a very difficult challenge after several years if you become like too far behind. And then second thing I would say, also the change management aspect. I think if I talk about like product or operational side, technology automation is much more binary. You actually automate something or don't, but AI-based automation is much more like probabilistic. And there's a kind of a change management aspect to how people within the organization are actually willing to understand that and willing to work with that, because you're not getting straight automation versus it's much more augmentation of humans who are actually performing the services. That's much more kind of probabilistic. And those factors have a kind of a long tail because change management doesn't come easily. So it's important to actually start investing in these things now, so that over time, people within the organization actually become much more comfortable with the new way of applying AI. John, do you want to share any other perspective?
Yeah, so to echo Victor almost exactly, is that, so looking at the investment side of it, we look at fundamental investors and you're looking for an information edge, which is pretty much in unstructured, but that's still, as I think whoever used the example of $100, people spot the $100 or €100 pretty quickly. So that's kind of, you can assist with getting that investment alpha, but our fairly firm view at Sinequa is there's kind of easier alphas to access in investment management, especially around distribution. If you're a large mutual fund house like Fidelity or whoever, Franklin Templeton, you have 20,000 different mutual funds. You're getting ready to pitch to one of the investment platforms. You've got to get up to date on 20,000 things. And then also other use cases like tech and ops. Everybody's trying to transform and speed up, especially with COVID. And then the third one, which is going on in the industry, especially in the active side, is like M&A, as opposed to integrate your systems, which take 3 years. You can access the information you need in a couple of, in a few months and so on. So I think it's almost like it's easier pickings. It's never easy to Deba's point about change. Changing operations is never easy, but there's almost like more alpha available in the operational side, to use Victor's word.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thank you, John. Let's move on to the next question. Do you agree that investment management is in the middle of an inevitable AI-driven transformation? Anybody wants to chime in first?
I can say yes. The essence of machine learning is extracting patterns from observations, and that is fundamental for algorithmic trading. So yeah.
I'll give my perspective on that. I mean, sort of a little bit contradicts what I was trying to say before in terms of the adaptive systems, and then it's hard to extract information. But I would think that there is an opportunity opening up, and I think that where we see where AI is making an impact is in handling large amounts of data. And now, again, looking for patterns in those very multivariate environments with highly non-dynamical systems, which AI can be adapted to recognize. I think that's where the real opportunities are. And I think that's where we're gonna be seeing a lot of changes going on in terms of direct link investments and alpha generating. And I think it's that kind of large kind of multivariate environments that we didn't have way of analyzing before or exposed to before, and the computing that we have on that. I think that's where we're gonna see a lot of the opportunities going on, and where AI is very, where the techniques are actually very well positioned to, I mean, with modifications, because I think the aspect, the challenge on those large data sets is the fact that they're non-stationary, and then the highly dynamical environment in which they move or co-move. I think that's where the complication is. But having said that, for example, techniques with reinforcement learning can be applied to that to actually start getting those dynamics in time. And I think that's where the real opportunity would be, where AI is very well suited for those.
John or Ioana, you want to chime in?
So sure, yeah. So I think from a quant perspective, I think the shift that we're seeing is from a emphasis on models, right? Traditional financial models that we've had for many years, to a more data-driven approach. And I think in that sense, AI is an enabling tool set to perform data analysis and pattern analysis is definitely at the core of that. So yes, I agree that there's a shift in that sense.
John?
I agree, and it's depends on the situation and depends on the investment strategy and depends on the institution, but not just in investments either. The large amounts of data, looking for patterns, you can apply that to fraud, applies in government as well. So we kind of help, we've worked on those areas as well. But I think one of the challenges, I think the biggest one that we see is kind of adoption. So, and having worked at Apple, the obsession with the user interface and the user experience is kind of helpful, is that for it to really get mainstream in financial institutions, it can't just be the province of data scientists and machine learning engineers. So it's kind of, I would say that's probably a typical state at the moment. You have very talented machine learning engineers and data scientists and so on, but is it mainstream? Probably not. So.
Yeah, I agree with many of the things you said. I'll just kind of ask a follow-up question. What do you think is the path to have AI impacting at scale in financial services or in investment? What things you think industries or companies should do? What is the path to have a scalable impact? Who wants to chime in first?
Well, I can sort of, so what we would do is it's bundled, it's almost hidden. So for search, the user experience is familiar. It's Google style. So you're not having to think of a new concept of interaction. And then the artificial intelligence heaviness, if you like, or complexity is underneath the surface around relevance and so on. So if Deba's searching, you understand what your role is, and you kind of get more and more relevant results happening. So you're not aware of, if you want to see the algorithms, you can see the algorithms, should that you be so inclined, but it's kind of, it's underneath the surface. It's a bit like in hardware that, with haptic touch on a Apple device, do you really need to know what haptic engineering is about? No. It depends on your particular individual, but it's same kind of thinking.
Others, anybody else kind of jump in?
I think it's also an issue of building trust into the results and the outcomes that the AI produces, right? So traditionally finance is very, I would say, especially in the discretionary space, very intuition driven, gut driven, discretionary in that sense, like at the discretion of the trader, of the portfolio manager. And so having trust in that the results of the AI are not necessarily intuitive, because they may not be like at the point where we're looking for non-linearities and things that are not so easily intuited by the human brain, but there still has to be some sort of a trust that's built between the people using it and the algorithms that produce the results, so that people are able to use it at scale and not think about it.
No, thank you. Like Alexander or Victor?
I would bring up a point of collaboration. So the incredible progress with pushing the state of the art that we're seeing in NLP and computer vision is enabled by this collaboration that the researchers have, publishing articles, discussing, meeting for conferences. I understand that it's not quite possible in finance, but at least inside the companies, I think creating a very open environment would be very important to scale the impact of AI.
That's interesting. Victor?
Yeah, I will say that in terms of scale, I think the difference could be to what was said before, having the confidence, having kind of take that kind of black box sense of these techniques and actually education in terms of what they really do or don't do. There's a lot of misconceptions in terms of that this magic perception that, okay, it's AI, it's going to solve everything or not. So there's a lot of that, and I think that needs to be education, kind of evangelizing these techniques, how they apply to different things is really what is very important in order to get much more benefit out of and incorporate them a big scale, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Victor. I would say I agree with many things everybody said here. I'll just share a couple of other perspectives. One, I think there's a lot of investment needed in the, I would say, what John talked about, the underneath layer, infrastructure layer, whether it is your data collection, data security, data storage, data engineering, all kind of stuff that actually helps the data scientists to actually build and train and scale their models in an ongoing way. I think investment into the technical aspect, much more IT aspect of it, is going to be important from a longer term scale perspective. And then also John talked about this. I think it's from a talent perspective. We can't really scale AI with the focus primarily on the data scientists. I think it's important that people within the business, whether investment managers, product operations, leadership, they know how to think about AI, how to implement AI, how to champion AI, and this needs to become much more a bigger part of the culture and much more in a democratic way, versus being driven purely just by the data scientists. I think some companies do that well, but I think there's a lot to be done in kind of much more democratizing the impact of AI in engineering and in leadership in different roles to have a scalable impact. Let's just kind of jump to the next question. I would say, so what will you say is the state of talent, AI talent, in the financial services or investment management industry, both from a data scientist perspective as well as other leaders who needs to know how to apply AI? Who wants to jump in first?
Let me jump in another one because I think that's an interesting one. So I read a few articles about the kind of the shortage of talent in lead data science, or in data scientists in general. I think that is partially true. Is actually a lot of schools are actually coming to that. What I found kind of interesting in the financial sector is that there are kind of two cultures going on in terms of the analysis and the quantitative aspect of it, which is the quant world, which I kind of belong to a big degree, and now in the AI world. And I think, and for some reason, there hasn't been kind of a merge of these two worlds. And it's not so much, it's interesting because techniques and the mathematics are very, they should be familiar to one to the other. But I think where the challenge is in the application of AI techniques in finance. And I think it's because, again, the culture of when you bring a team of AI people into a company, especially in finance, they have this kind of all knowledge of these techniques, but they have the perspective of it's all about computing, it's all about algorithms, and they just throw everything in there. Magic will come out of it some kind of way. And then you have also the traditional kind of quant space, which kind of is a little bit skeptical because of the financial aspect of these techniques, which that it's like, that you cannot throw these things into a black box and all of a sudden make money out of it. So I think it's this a misperception in those two camps, even though they know the math pretty well and the techniques and all these things. One is coming from a very IT oriented, and one of those very analytically oriented. And I think there has been some kind of shortage, a serious shortage in these two worlds coming together. And I think lack of talent on people having experience in both aspects of it. I have noticed that, and it's very hard to get some lead or data scientists who come with that kind of financial background, and also the same thing making quants coming into this kind of IT world about TensorFlow and all these things and all these Kubernetes and all these things that are a little bit different. Even for example, simple things as SQL databases, they're not jumping into like graph databases. For some of them, it's not like kind of natural. So that's where I think the big challenge in terms of finance. And there are not too many people in that camp, I think.
Anybody else want to share some thoughts?
Yeah, I think technical talent is can always be more, but it seems pretty, I'm not really qualified to judge anybody's technical talent, but the amount of conferences and number of people and so on. So technical talent seems in pretty good shape, and finance, has historically always paid quite well for its talent. So you have that kind of side, and then on the revenue producing side, there's rightly an impatience for how do I create more revenue with these tools and techniques. So I think a bit like historically financial services has always had this challenge, is that kind of translator role where having been in derivatives, where everybody thinks alpha, beta, theta, gamma, it's literally the shorthand for everything. All of human activity boils down to those four factors. It's like sitting in the middle and translating, because they are two, the educational backgrounds, the language, the attitudes are quite different. So it's almost like that bridge, and it's not just the burden is not just on one side, but the bridge seems a little bit shaky at the moment, should I say, between the two disciplines.
Thank you, John. That's very interesting. And Alexander or Ioana, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think what I find interesting is the mix of cultures, right? Like you have the traditional finance, Wall Street culture coming together with the, I guess the tech, Silicon Valley. And, we've seen like across the board, various financial institutions trying to adapt and change and implement some of these digital labs or places where people are not in their traditional space, cubicles, or there's like more of a tech vibe, like tech company vibe. So I think it'll be interesting, given what has been said here before, that there's very few people with a dual backgrounds, right? So then there has to be coming together, more emphasis on collaboration. So it's kind of interesting to notice like the efforts that are being made at mixing the cultures and trying to accommodate everybody.
Alexander, any thoughts?
Agree with the previous speakers. I don't have any specific.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I would say I agree with the collaboration piece and how different teams actually structure, both structurally or much more fluidly, how the collaboration happens. I also share that I think separately the real knowledge of how to apply AI needs to be much more pervasive within different business leaders, starting from the top and across different groups, so that they have a realistic understanding of what AI can do, what cannot do, and how to think about this. I think that also is a thing that I think needs to evolve over time. I don't think we're there yet. I think need to evolve over time so that collectively, we kind of have much more collaboration, and this becomes like much more like, let's say, digital capability. I think that's much more understood across all the different stakeholders and groups. It was not the case, let's say 20 years back. I think AI needs to kind of move in that direction so that it's much more better understood, even among the data scientists, as well as business stakeholders, business people, business leaders across the board. So I think with that, I would say that is kind of our structured question and answer, and we'll open it up for questions for live audience.
Awesome. Thank you so much to all of our awesome panelists. This has been a really engaging discussion, and we just want to say thank you to everyone. So a big virtual round of applause for everyone. Woo! Thank you again to our panelists. And now you can submit your questions, and also feel free to look at the agenda for your next session. We'll also be offering networking sessions, so please get engaged with those and meet some new people. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you soon.